Hello everyone, it's Niven, and today I am making a special video for you. If you're interested in game development, here are the basic tips 101. All you need to know to start making your game, develop your game, and publish your game. We, of course, start with the basics. The basic idea of game development is actually to make it simple. You don't need a game to be more like Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed, Grand Theft Auto, or any other game which you prefer and look up to. You have to actually start from baby steps. You have to make it simple. You have to make it enjoyable. For example, if you want to make a horror game, you have to start with a basic idea of what do you want to have in your game. It can be a walking simulator, it can be an FPS shooter, which is easier to make than you think. And most of all, you have to enjoy the experience. Making games is not hard, and making games is not a work. Although, of course, you can make games on a professional level and get paid, which we'll be talking about, but number 2 rule is always to enjoy the experience. And then we go to number 3, rule for basic game developers. Lower your ambitions. I started this by saying that you have to make your game simple, which actually corresponds to lowering your ambitions. If you start game development because you want to be a producer or a director of the game of the next Silent Hill chapter or Resident Evil chapter or any other big game chapter, let's say Far Cry 7, then you're in the wrong place. Your mind and your dedication should be towards actually making something very simple. As I say, those 3 main rules are very important for you as a game developer, and it will actually help you. And you should trust me. Why? Because I've been making games for 8 years. I've had some good games, I had some bad games, I had some overall great games. But what always pushed me towards is making it simple. Although I have sinned and I've also had ambitions of making something bizarre and something grand. But at first you have to always lower your ambitions and expectations. Why? Because it's very important for you not to get burnt out. As we go for the next chapter, we have to start with original ideas for game development. Now, how we do make up the ideas? First of all, you have to consume content, right? You have to watch videos, you have to play games, you have to look at streamers, which is very helpful actually. You have to develop your own idea, yet you have to look at something else. Now, specifying genre always helps with original ideas. For example, if you're trying to make a game about sports, you have to specify genre, which is sports games. For example, EA makes sports games, Konami also makes sports games, and then you have to go and specify what type of game you have to do. In my case, I do mostly horror-themed games, which are very popular, by the way. And I do look at horror-themed games, I watch horror channels, and I watch streamers who do and play horror games. It's very helpful. As it goes for editing, you have to understand that sometimes original ideas don't come up from space. They don't come up from just looking at a game, playing a game, rather editing something which already has been done. For example, some of you might know Puppet Combo, which is very popular on making PS1, PSX style horror games. Now, a lot of people looked at those developers and made their own games which are similar, but they edited the idea and made it to be something special. Now, editing can be very tricky because some people understand editing as copying someone else's work. For example, I will give you my most hated game, which everyone loves, but I actually do not. It is PT. PT, which was a playable teaser and I've talked about on my channel, actually ruined singly the imagination of game developers, and many game developers have made games since then, some good, some bad, but overall they copied the PT idea and did not edit that idea. It's just a corridor which gets looped and looped and looped and again and again and again. The other one, which is becoming now very popular, and some of you might know who are watching my channel, is Backrooms. Lots of backrooms. Every game, literally every game, has some kind of backroom story, some kind of backrooms lore, and it's very confusing. You have to understand that when you do editing and you're trying to make a game, you have to always consider the fact that you have to make it something which is different, the original idea. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't make a Backrooms clone, you shouldn't make a PT clone, you shouldn't make a Slenderman game clone. I've done it too. I'm not saying that, because that would sound hypocritical from me. But all I want for you to understand is how to improve yourself and how to start making games, making it fun, and actually do your work and be grateful. And now we go to the main topic, which is burnout. Burnout is very problematic, especially for game developers, because you do get in trouble a lot when you have an idea and it doesn't work. Sometimes you go develop 1 level, 2 levels, 3 levels, and on the 4th level, you don't know what to do. I especially get frustrated and burnt out when I do endings for my games. I start with the basic idea, I develop the idea, I make all the mechanics, but I don't have the ending. There are some developers who start from the ending, so they make the ending of the game, and they go backwards. You can use any type of method, any type of technique, that's up to you. That's a different conversation, of course, but number one most important thing is not to burn out while making games, because that can be very demotivating and that can actually ruin your experience and, of course, your expectations for the game. For the next one, we go to programming. And this is very simple. If you have played games, if you have at least been developing some type of game, you know that programming is very important. We have some of the best programs to use, for example, Unreal Engine, Unity, Godot, GDevelop, GameMaker Studio, and the one which I use, and many of you know this, is CopperCube 6, which is very easy to use. I have all information, all the tutorials on my channel, you can check it out. But if you want to make some really amazing games, and if you have your time and you're dedicated, of course you should choose some other engine and give it a go. For example, I would definitely recommend Godot engine and Unity engine. Now, as far as it goes for marketing, that's very important also. You have to consider 3 main factors. Number 1 is audience. Who are you making game for? Now, I've heard some people say that I'm just making game for, fun. I'm making game for myself. Well, to be honest, I look at those people and say that's BS. That's not great. If you make games for yourself, if you do anything just for yourself, just to have fun and not to share it, it's okay. I'm not saying it's bad, but overall, does it really make sense? Does it really affect you somehow? When I make a game, I'm always grateful when an audience picks up on my game, when they like the game, even when they hate the game, because it makes me to work hard and to actually discover more. Because what is game development if not learning and discovering once again, every time? Number 2 category is language. I've seen a lot of games being published on the market and they don't have a translation. I have seen some amazing games, some French games, some Spanish games, and especially Portuguese language. People have created amazing games, but why are those games not played? Because they don't have the language translation. Now, I understand that language can be tricky for some people, but you have to understand that making it in English, making games in English, is very helpful for your game to market better and for the game to grab more and more attention because it's very important. English is a universal language. A lot of people speak English. I do understand. I don't want you to feel pressured. I don't want the translation to be an obligation. Yet, if you create a good game, if you want that game to be played, and if you want the game to be shared with the world, is it really that hard to just go and Google the translation for the game and to translate the text, or at least market the game on the games page and translate it? It's very simple. It's not hard. So I would recommend to consider language very, very carefully. And of course, platforms. Platforms is number one marketing method which helps your game to grow, which helps you to grow as a game developer. And honestly, I haven't touched a lot on that subject, and personally, I didn't have much experience on it because I usually publish PC only games, and I'm not focused too much on Android application or Mac OS, or I would say PlayStation and Xbox games. I don't have that much experience with that, but it is considered that if you market your games, you should look at the platforms on which your games would be published. And some games actually work on certain platforms. Like, for example, some multiplayer games work better on Android, some other type of games, the shooters, work better on PC, some third-person games work better on PlayStation and Xbox. It's always up to you. And as we go to the final frontier, we have publishing. If you want to publish your game, you have to consider three main things: budget, solo versus team, and profits. Budget, of course, is very important. You have to create the deficits, but at a point where you're not losing anything. Now let me explain this simply. You have to make a game and don't spend anything. And if you want to sell that game, you have to make sure that that game sells. Now, if you have a budget of, let's say, $1,000, you have to consider what those $1,000 will be spent on. Is it going to be marketing? Is it going to be a game engine? Is it going to be assets? Honestly, coming from myself, I make games for free. And I make games without having any budget, meaning that I actually don't spend anything on making my games, which is the number one reason why they are free. But other reason why they're free, of course, is because I'm not really into doing games on professional level that much to consider myself gaining money and people giving me donations and things like that. That's other side of the story. But you have to be very careful with your budget, especially if you want to make something huge. And then we go to solo versus team, which is a criteria that many developers didn't look. They don't look at it. They say, I can make a game, but then they look at the assets, they look at programming, they look at sound design, they look at textures, and they say, well, you know what? It will be great if I had someone else with me. So you have to consider very carefully. Do you want someone to help you with the game, or do you want to make games on your own? I personally started with a team. I had a person who worked with me and we were trying to make games, and then that person actually went their own way and I started making games on my own. But even now, I actually think sometimes when I see a great developer, and I actually know many great developers and I do want to work with them, but of course I'm not trying to be a suck up, and I'm not trying to tell them, hey, I should work with you, or hey, you should work with me. But sometimes I find it very pleasing to work in a team, and I actually made a game, The Madness of Man, with Peril-Tech, the game development team, and you should check that game out. It's very great. So working in a team is also great, but you have to kind of find the middle for you want to make solo games or team games. And we go towards the end of our discussion and we talk about profits. Now, we have a problem with the profits because sometimes people think that their game is worth something. Now, honestly, I don't think any game is worth anything, and especially my games, but mostly even the games which are amazing. Some of the games I've seen on itch.io and they cost nothing. And I'm surprised of how a developer would make such a mistake. Also, I see games which cost a lot of money. I saw a game which was published on Steam for $39. And I looked at that trash game. I won't say what the name of the game was, but I said to myself, I would not pay even $1. If I had $100 billion, I would not pay even $1 for that game. And that's why you have to be very careful to not lose the money or to lose the interest of the player or anyone who is buying your game. You have to be very careful. Now, I know it's tough to credit yourself. I know it's tough to kind of say, am I worth $2? Is this game worth $1? I'm gonna say this straight ahead. Your game is worth nothing. There are hundreds and millions, actually, thousands, billion games probably. And your game is nothing of an exception. Unless you create something very specific, something very unique, and something very great. Now, I'm not saying and discouraging anyone by your games won't make money. Actually, they will. I've seen the game, which I won't mention once again, I've seen that game make tons of money. And it was $3 and it made tons of money on itch.io. And I was very pleased. Did I think that that game was worth $3? Of course not, but it made $3. And that's why when it comes to profits, people should think a lot before they want to publish the game and start making money from it. That's very important. And once again, main rules of game development, and ones that you should never forget, is to make it simple, to enjoy yourself, to always look at the specific genre which you want to make games. Always realize that your idea might be original, but you can edit someone else's idea, but do not copy that idea. Market the game, work alone or with the team, and publish your game. That's all I wanted to say. If you have any questions, please leave the comment in the comment section and I will answer. Thanks once again everyone for watching, and I hope this did help for you, beginner game developers, amateur game developers, or if you're an advanced game developer and if you're watching this, please just comment in the description and have a wonderful day everyone. Goodbye.